Well, you've obviously decided that you want to buy your first home. You have some questions, so you're searching the internet looking for answers, and you stumbled across this video. Well, this video here, real estate lawyer Shawn Quigg of Cardinal Law is going to break down for you the entire real estate transaction process on the legal side. They'll discuss a little bit about the agreement of purchase and sale, land transfer tax and title insurance, closing costs, and all the way up until when you're going to get the keys. Enjoy the video, take in the information. It'll definitely give you some confidence as you begin down this path. Shawn's information will pop up at the end of the video. Don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help. Enjoy the video because now is a great time to buy your first home.
Congratulations, you've made the decision to jump into home ownership. You're a first-time home buyer in Ontario, and this is a very exciting time for you. My name's Shawn Quigg. I'm a lawyer with Cardinal Law. I help people buy real estate, sell real estate, finance real estate, and make them feel good doing it. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the agreement of purchase and sale. You know, this isn't just a formality. This is a legally binding contract. In Ontario and most of the world, a contract only requires three things to be valid: an offer, an acceptance of that offer, and consideration. And an agreement of purchase and sale for real estate is no different, right? That offer is that written document that you as a buyer send to the seller. And the acceptance of that offer is eventually when they sign and there's no more negotiating, right? Now we have offer and acceptance. And as long as you are paying at least $1 for that property, then there is consideration flowing. And so you've got a valid contract. But what does that mean? Well, it means you've got to comply with the terms and you've got to perform your end of the deal. And your end of the deal is very simple. You've got to deliver the appropriate signed closing documents and the appropriate amount of money on the closing day by 6 p.m. Now, that may sound simple, and it can be, but there's a lot that goes into that. And one thing to consider is if you don't comply with the terms, or if you and the seller have a disagreement, this is something that a person can be sued on. And so it's important to get the contract right to make sure that you're not overextending yourself, that you are able to close. And so you can avoid that litigation trouble later. You know, as you're putting together your agreement, you're probably going to talk with your realtor about conditions. And what they're referring to are typically contingent conditions. What does this mean? Well, simply that the deal's not going to progress unless something happens. And you might be very familiar with what these look like typically in a real estate deal. Think a financing condition, right? You're not obligated to complete the deal unless you get financing satisfactory to you, right? This is a very important one, especially as a first-time home buyer, because you got to make sure that you can get a mortgage unless you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars kicking around to buy in cash. An inspection might be another contingent condition that you want to look for on an agreement of purchase and sale. It's always a good idea to have a professional go through your house that you're going to buy and make sure that there's nothing hidden, nothing that's lurking or that is going to need an immediate and expensive repair, right? These are typically things that you wouldn't be able to sue the seller for later. And so, yeah, you know, an inspection is a very good idea. It's also not a terrible idea to get a lawyer to review your agreement before you go firm. Now, if you don't know what going firm means, that means when you fulfill or get rid of all of those contingent conditions like financing and inspection. You can add in another one that is contingent upon lawyer review. And your lawyer, whether it's me or someone else, would be happy to take a look, give you some advice. Make sure that you know those proverbial T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Let's talk about what's available financially for first-time homebuyers. Right? You've probably heard that first-time homebuyers don't pay land transfer tax, and to a certain extent, that's true. There are some complicated rules with respect to first-time homebuyers and the land transfer tax rebate, but we can try and simplify them. If you are buying by yourself, or if you and your spouse, your significant other, are buying a property and you're both first-time homebuyers, meaning you've never owned property anywhere in the world, then you qualify for the land transfer tax rebate in Ontario. And that rebate is up to $4,000. And what your lawyer will do is they'll calculate what the land transfer tax should be, right? And let's say it's $5,000, right? If it's going to be $5,000 and you qualify for the full $4,000 rebate, then your net land transfer tax would be $1,000. And that's all you have to pay on closing, right? So we don't actually pay the land transfer tax and then ask for the rebate back. We actually net it out on the closing. So you only have to come up with that $1,000. Now, if you're buying in the city of Toronto, well, there's possibly an additional municipal land transfer tax rebate there as well, right? In the city of Toronto is the only municipality in the entire province that is permitted to charge its own land transfer tax. And so you'll want to check in with your lawyer to make sure you qualify for that as well. Now, sometimes people in our industry mix up the applicability of a land transfer tax rebate and the ability to buy a house with a 95% loan to value mortgage or withdraw from the federal home buyers plan. So I want to leave you with this. They're very separate things. Lots of people, including first-time home buyers, but not just first-time home buyers, can buy with a 95% loan to value, high ratio mortgage. Lots of people can withdraw from their RRSP to buy a home, but only first-time home buyers qualify for the land transfer tax rebate. Let's move on to title searching. This is your lawyer's most important job. When you buy a house, you think you're buying that structure on that dirt, on that street that you really loved. But what you're really buying is the legal right to access and the legal right to deny access to other people. And we represent this in law with a deed. Now, if you're familiar with American nomenclature or if you played Monopoly, you might think a deed is a physical piece of paper. And it used to be, but now it's electronic. And Ontario has the most sophisticated land registry system in the entire world. We keep our deeds in an electronic system. And what your lawyer is doing when they get your agreement of purchase and sale is they're completing a title search. And that title search is to make sure that the person that is selling you the house actually owns it, actually has that deed. And they're also looking for issues with respect to the property or title itself. Now, not every issue is discoverable, but most of them are. And that's what your lawyer is looking for. They're looking for conditions on your use. They're looking for easements or encroachments. They're looking for rights of way. They're looking for all sorts of things which might impact your free use of the property. For instance, there was recently a case I was looking at where a homeowner bought a piece of property, but their lawyer didn't do a great job. And it was later discovered that the city had the right to claw back the rear 30 feet of the lot to build a road. Now, that's not necessarily free use because the city at any time could take that 30 feet of land and build a road. And you've just lost 30 feet of depth of your lot, which is a lot. So it's important to hire a good lawyer, make sure they do a great title search. The title insurance is something that you're going to need. Your lawyer is going to talk to you about it, right? Your lender is going to need a policy, and you're going to need a policy. And title insurance protects you from all sorts of issues which could devalue or denigrate your title. There are some big things like mortgage fraud and title fraud. You might have seen some examples of this in the news, where someone's impersonated someone else and sold the property and run off with the money, which would be terrible. It recently happened, I think last year, to a couple. They were on vacation, they came home and someone else was in their house. So this can be very problematic, and title insurance protects you from that. Only your lawyer can get you a title insurance policy, and they do it on your behalf with the closing coming up a couple days in advance. They'll get your policy, and it's usually a few $100s. It lasts until you sell. Let's talk about the hidden costs of owning and buying real estate as a first-time home buyer. We often hear the phrase down payment, and A lot of people confuse down payment with the amount required to close. Right? We call that the balance due on closing. The down payment is a financing and mortgage term. It's referring to the amount of the purchase price that the bank will not lend you, right? So if you are buying a house and your bank is giving you an 80% loan to value mortgage, then your down payment is going to be 20%. But that's not necessarily the balance due on closing. The balance due on closing is going to be more. First off, land transfer tax. Even though you qualify for a rebate, it's only up to $4,000. So if you're buying a house where the land transfer tax is going to be more than $4,000, you've got to add the difference to your down payment. You've got to pay your lawyer's fees, right? Some lawyers charge legal fees and disbursements. Disbursements is a fancy term for costs that the lawyer incurs on your behalf. Our firm doesn't do that. At the time I'm recording this, we do all-in pricing where legal fees are inclusive of all disbursements, right? You've got to factor in your title insurance policy, right? That could be a few $100s. There are also a couple of adjustments that are often made on the closing date. One of them, the most popular, is property tax, right? If the seller has paid the entire year's worth of property tax up front, but they only own the property for half the year, well, then they've overpaid the tax by half a year, and you've got to reimburse them that difference. And they're going to expect it all on closing. Same with utilities, especially when they're municipal, right? So some municipalities have flat rates for water, for instance, and so there's often an adjustment for that. And these things start to add up. And you can see your 20% down payment starts to add some land transfer tax, some legal fees, title insurance, some adjustments. That might be a little bit more than you were expecting. Let's talk about closing day. Right? Closing day is a very exciting day, but it can be very stressful. So here's how it works. On the closing day, your lawyer takes the documents that you've signed with them. Typically, you will have signed a day or two before then, right? And I meet with clients virtually, wherever they are in the world and wherever I am in the world, and we do an electronic signing. Then, at the same time, we are working with your lender to satisfy your lender to the point where they'll send us their money. You probably have already sent your money, right? We've calculated how much we need from you, which is your down payment and all of your closing costs. And you've probably sent that to us the day before. Once your mortgage money lands, then we prepare to send all of the money that we need to send to the seller's lawyer so that we can close. Once they have all of the money and the appropriate closing documents, they'll send us the electronic deed, which is what we need in order to get you access to the property. Once we have that deed and we receive it electronically, we register it within the land registry office. And that's the moment you own the house. Congratulations. We also then tell you, hey, you own a house. By the way, here's how you get keys. Most of the time, that's in a lockbox. Although typically your realtor will have that worked out in advance as well. I'm going to leave you with this, some legal pitfalls. As you're a first-time homebuyer, it's a very exciting time. I strongly recommend not to rush into a bidding war. Take a breath. Put in a lawyer review clause. If you're working really closely with your lawyer in advance, they might even review it before you submit. But bidding wars are where mistakes are made. And I've seen it countless times where a person or a couple has bought a property, has overpaid for it, and have buyer's remorse later. So keep that in mind. Another is buying properties as is. Lots of sellers will tell you they're selling as is, where is. This is a complex topic, way outside of the scope for today. And as is isn't necessarily a problem. It just means that you have no recourse against the seller later. Another pitfall is if you're buying a pre-construction home. Lots of people are buying pre-construction condos or pre-construction houses. Pre-construction or new build agreements of purchase and sale are not standardized. They're very long. They're 60 to 100 pages long. they should be reviewed thoroughly by a lawyer. Your lawyer knows what to look for. They're looking for additional ways that the builder can charge you money, among other things. Another pitfall is if you know the seller. If you are buying from a family or a friend and you're trying to do a private deal, you still need a lawyer, and you should probably have your lawyer put together your agreement because friendly deals can still go sour. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, my name is Shawn, and you can reach me at Shawn@cardinallaw.ca. I'd be delighted to help you understand what it means to be a first-time home buyer and how to be super successful at it. Thank you so much, and I hope you have an awesome day.